Hi, I'm Cristy Fincher. Welcome to the next video in my series for the double wedding ring quilt along featuring the piec-lique technique. In this video we're going to sew together our melon wedges that we assembled in the last video. As I mentioned before, when you open up your seam, so here is the little corner here, and we are going to stitch the seam that connects arch A, the short arch, to the center melon wedge. And this is that seam here. So we open it up. Here's what the front of it looks like. And then we open it up. And here is the crease that we're going to stitch on. This is our sewing line, so we don't need to try and figure out where 1/4 of an inch is, or try and keep a precise seam allowance on this side of the seam allowance. We are just stitching right on this crease. Do make sure that you have you are not stitching this way and having all of the bulk of your fabric of your piece to one side. We are stitching just like we would typically to get both pieces sewn together. So line up your needle, and on where meets the cornerstone is going to be the trickiest part. And the reason I mention it as being tricky is if you feel it, it's kind of bulky right here. You can feel the little lump. This is where glue basting really helps us stabilize and secure our stitching. We are going to, I'll have a little straight pin for a pointer, we are going to stitch on the right hand side of that bulk. If you stitch on that bulk, let me show you what's going to happen. If you stitch on it even a couple of stitches, let me pinch it, when we open it up you're going to have a little pucker, a little fold over right there, which we don't want. Actually, let me show you. I'll stitch it just a little bit so you can see what it looks like. I'll stitch it wrong first. So I am stitching on the crease, and I'm not to the right of that crease on the bulk. So feel like I'm on the crease, but really I'm on that bulk. So when I stop here and open it up and look at it, see, you can see my stitches, and it has pinched these pieces together here, which I don't want. So if that happens to you and you've stitched it, just take that part of the seam out. Remember, everything is glue basted here, so nothing is going to fall apart. It's going to really help you out as if you make mistakes, which I've done it so many times. That's how I've learned to teach it, so I can help you. See, and I unthreaded my needle. Give me a sec here. Oh, I hope nobody comments on, Cristy, use your needle threader. You have a needle threader on that machine. I don't anymore. It broke. And I've never even used to use it, but it broke a long time ago. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll stay to the right of the crease, just past that little bulk. You might even feel your needle kind of skim it, or just go to the side of it. Do back stitch a couple of stitches, and then now that you pass that bulk, you can just stay right on the crease, and it is smooth sailing. Take it a little bit slow. We don't need a speed piece here, especially since you're learning. Once you get the hang of it, you can go faster. A little bit at a time, gentle curve. Stay right on the crease. That's important. That's what the line is there to help you. And it's going to ensure that everything stays the size that it needs to be. Now I'm at that bulk again. So I can see that, so I'm going to stay just a tiny bit to the right of the crease so I make sure that I don't hit that bulk. And now that side is done. So I have my nice little seam there, but it's got a lot of an allowance left. So the next step is to go ahead and trim it down. Make sure, this is so important, you guys, make sure you trim this before you go to sew the next seam. Just like in paper piecing, you have to trim it before you sew the next seam, or you're going to have bulk left in your seam allowance. Now the next seam is ready to stitch. We have that trimmed down to a nice 1/4 inch or thereabouts. And this next seam is ready to go. So we'll go ahead and stitch right on the crease again. Now this part, oops, I lost my camera. Okay. This seam goes over this folded portion of the short arch. Keep it folded. I will show you how to manage that when we get to the assembly of everything. Please don't unfold it to work with it. Go ahead and keep it folded and do your seaming, and then we will manage everything else later. All right, let's go ahead and get stitching on this piece. So right where the crease is here, we'll have our seam allowance again to the right. This is going to stay folded, and we'll go ahead and manage that later, so don't worry about that right now. Just stay right on that crease, and you're going to go around that whole arch piece. Do back stitch. Now to avoid sewing and getting little pleats, here you probably notice I'm kind of grab a bulk of it and kind of just pull it a tad taut. Since it's glue basted, I'm not shifting anything because I want to keep everything clear of my seam line so I don't get any puckers or pleats. It just makes for a flatter, nicer front side of your melon wedge. And if you, oh look, this is so perfect. See here some of my glue, because I opened the seam, it kind of stuck together, so just release that. Oh, that was my pinch, never mind. That was that pinch seam that I didn't undo. Let me get that out. If that happens, you have some little. So I didn't undo this, so make sure if you make the mistake like I did on purpose, that you release those stitches so you can sew over. Because if it pinches like I showed you the mistake, you won't be able to sew the rest. Ah, that's better. Okay, now we are ready to go. See, I make mistakes as we go too. Easy to fix. So I just didn't take all of my threads out there. No problem. Okay, go all the way to the end. You don't have to go to the end of this, but to the end of this part here. And back stitch. And you're done. Then once you have that sewn, you go ahead and take it on out and trim it just like you did the other side. Let's go ahead. Once that's all done, see here, you have everything sewn, and you can press it nice and flat. It's going to be ready to assemble with your center and another melon. So go ahead and stitch all your melons together, and we're going to be ready to go for assembling our whole piece. See how we matched up on our template? The center, that little point there where a cornerstone matched. When we stitched together, because we glue basted it, And I haven't even pressed it yet. So see how nice that matches up there and there? Because we took that just that extra minute to make sure that that intersection was going to come together. So once you get these all stitched and trimmed, go ahead and press them, and just press your seams out from the center and make sure this lays nice and flat, and then on the next video we'll assemble it all together.